She didn't lose her crown in a palace revolt or a whispered scandal. Grace Kelly's fairy tale ended on a mountain road in silence, with no audience to applaud. And maybe that's the cruelest part, because her entire life had been lived as if the world was watching. Before Grace Kelly was a princess, she was becoming herself, still forming, still discovering, still free. Not born into ease, but into expectation. Raised beneath Philadelphia's sharp edges of discipline and ambition, she trained for acting the way others trained for survival, with obsession carved from hunger. Hollywood didn't give her beauty, it gave her permission to weaponize it. On screen, Grace was effortless, that devastating ease that makes genius look simple. But that grace was crafted frame by frame. Every role sharpened her confidence like a blade. Every film expanded the architecture of her future. Alfred Hitchcock once said she held fire and ice in the same breath, a contradiction that shouldn't breathe, yet somehow did. She won an Oscar at 24, and she was just getting started. Then something happened that no script, no director, no amount of preparation could have readied her for. Grace Kelly loved deeply, often, recklessly, and not quietly. She loved fellow actors who understood the performance of living. She loved intellectuals who saw her not as an icon frozen in celluloid, but as a woman still writing her own story. Some relationships ended because fame became a third presence in the room. Others because of timing, that brutal mathematics of wrong person, right moment. And then came Prince Rainier III of Monaco, the Cannes Film Festival, spring lights spilling over the Côte d'Azur like liquid gold. The press called it destiny written in starlight. The world screamed romance, but the proposal wasn't just romantic, it was final. To marry him, Grace had to give up acting forever. Not a pause, not a someday I'll return. Forever, that word with no exit, no amendment, no more films, no more becoming someone else, that beautiful escape hatch of the actor's soul. No more choosing her own future. Love, in exchange for identity. The world called it a fairy tale. Grace signed the contract anyway. Marriage didn't elevate Grace Kelly. It replaced her entirely. She moved to Monaco and stepped into a role with no rehearsal, no second takes, and no exit. Every gesture governed by centuries of protocol. Every smile inspected under the microscope of tradition. Princess Grace was admired. Grace Kelly was buried alive inside her. Palaces are beautiful from the outside, all limestone elegance and fairy tale towers. From within, they can feel like museums of the living, where everything is preserved in amber and nothing is allowed to breathe, to break, to be messy and therefore real. She raised 3 children under that relentless glass. She learned royal protocol the way she'd once learned scripts, perfectly, flawlessly, until the performance became indistinguishable from the self. She became a symbol of elegance for a nation that desperately needed legitimacy. But symbols don't get to be human. She once admitted she felt like a mannequin in a shop window, perfectly styled, perfectly still, perfectly trapped behind glass, while the world pressed its face against her life and called it beautiful. She felt lonely, surrounded by crowds, yet untouched, loved for what she represented, not who she was still trying to become. Hollywood called again. Scripts arrived like love letters from a past life. Hitchcock wanted her back, promising the only freedom she'd ever known. She said no, again and again, because the crown does not share the spotlight. The crown does not negotiate. The crown simply is and demands you be nothing else. Grace gave up more than a career, more than the Oscar gathering dust, more than the roles she'd never play. She gave up distance from scrutiny. She gave up privacy as a mother. Her children's lives dissected, analyzed, photographed. She gave up returning home as anything other than royalty. No longer Grace from Philadelphia, but Princess Grace of Monaco. Even her relationships changed under the weight of the crown. Her family was proud, but the distance grew wider than the Atlantic. Her old friends felt like memories of someone else's life. Her old self became someone she was expected not to mention, a ghost she couldn't mourn publicly. A princess does not long for what was. She smiles. Grace smiled with a dignity that made even sadness look composed, that made pain appear as poise. As the years unfurled, Grace became less myth and more memory, a photograph of a photograph, each copy a little further from the original light. Yet she never stopped trying. She championed the arts with quiet ferocity. She supported charities the way some people breathe, consistently, necessarily. But tragedy does not announce itself with trumpets. It waits in the wings, it chooses its moment. It arrives wearing the mask of an ordinary day. On September 13, 1982, Grace Kelly drove along the serpentine roads above Monaco, a route she had traveled countless times, curves memorized through repetition. Some say she suffered a stroke. Others say she simply lost control. What matters is this. For once, there were no cameras, no audience, no script to follow. A moment too brutally human for a life spent appearing untouchable. The car left the road and plunged down the mountainside, like a star falling back to earth. The fairy tale did not end with a kiss or credits rolling over a happy ending. Grace Kelly died at 52. Hollywood lost the actress who left too soon, whose final performance was cut short mid-scene. Monaco lost the princess who gave everything, her career, her country, her very self. And her children lost their mother, not Princess Grace, not the icon, but the woman off camera who was real in all the ways the world tried to forget. Grace Kelly didn't just give up acting to become a princess. She gave up freedom. And she reminded us that even royalty is mortal, that even fairy tales end, that even Grace herself was finally, beautifully, tragically human.